ran her fingers through the fresh lilies, carefully rearranging the blooms one more time. They needed to be just right white petals in perfect symmetry, delicate and flawless. She liked things that way, neat, orderly, under control. The scent of the flowers filled the room, mixing with the faint aroma of vanilla candles she had lit earlier. It was their wedding anniversary weekend, and everything had to be perfect. Her husband, Alex, would be home soon. They were supposed to leave early tomorrow for a cabin retreat in the Hideout, Wyoming, a break from work, from stress, from the quiet undercurrents of tension that had lately started to creep into their marriage. She had chosen not to dwell on those moments. The missed calls, the unexplained late nights, the way Alex's smile didn't quite reach his eyes anymore. It was probably just work stress. Everyone had rough patches, right? She told herself this as she stood by the window, twisting her wedding ring with her thumb, a nervous habit she had picked up in recent months. Outside, the late afternoon sun bathed their driveway in golden light. Alex's black SUV sat parked there, waiting to be cleaned out before their trip. Nina grabbed her keys from the kitchen counter, humming a soft tune as she stepped into her sandals. Alex wasn't the neatest person, and she didn't mind helping with the small things, tidying up the house, straightening his clothes, and cleaning out his car. It was one of the ways she showed love. Acts of service. That's what the marriage books called it. As she opened the car door, the familiar scent of leather mixed with Alex's cologne washed over her, an earthy, masculine scent she had always loved. She smiled as she slid into the passenger seat and began sorting through the mess. Empty coffee cups, wrappers from snacks, a couple of newspapers tossed carelessly on the seat. All typical Alex. But something caught her eye. A small shimmer, glinting faintly in the gap between the seat and the console. Nina leaned over, her fingers brushing lightly against smooth metal. She reached down and pulled out a small gold earring. For a moment, she just stared at it. It was delicate, elegant, an intricate swirl of gold with tiny pearls embedded in its design. Not flashy, but sophisticated. The kind of jewelry you wore to an intimate dinner or a private meeting. It wasn't hers. Her heart skipped a beat, and her breath hitched as a sense of unease spread through her. She turned the earring over in her hand, searching for something, anything that would make this all make sense. But there was no explanation. She didn't own earrings like this, and Alex, he wasn't the kind of man to buy gifts for other women. At least, she thought he wasn't. Nina sat perfectly still, her mind whirring as she tried to rationalize what she was holding. Perhaps it belonged to someone from work? A colleague's girlfriend, maybe? Alex sometimes gave people rides. Yes, that had to be it. She was overthinking things. But deep down, in a quiet corner of her heart, something cracked. Her fingers trembled as she set the earring on the dashboard and leaned back against the seat, staring at the ceiling. A part of her wanted to believe that this was a simple mistake, that there was a logical explanation for the earring's presence. But another part of her, a part she didn't want to acknowledge, whispered that something wasn't right. She swallowed hard, trying to push down the rising wave of anxiety. It was just an earring. Just a tiny misplaced object. It didn't have to mean anything. And yet, why hadn't Alex mentioned it? The front gate creaked open, followed by the familiar crunch of gravel beneath tires. Alex's voice drifted toward her as he spoke on the phone, sounding cheerful and relaxed. Nina quickly slipped the earring into her pocket and stepped out of the car just as he walked through the gate, ending his call with a chuckle. "Hey, babe." Alex greeted her with that easy, charming smile she had fallen in love with years ago. He leaned in and kissed her cheek, smelling faintly of aftershave and mint. Nina forced a smile in return, though her mind was elsewhere. "You ready for our trip tomorrow?" he asked, his voice light and playful. "Almost," Nina murmured, trying to keep her tone casual. "I was just cleaning out your car." Alex nodded absently, already scrolling through his phone. "Found something interesting," Nina said quietly, watching him carefully. Alex glanced up. "Oh? What did you find?" Nina reached into her pocket and held out the earring, letting it dangle between her fingers. "This." The change in his expression was subtle, so subtle that anyone else might have missed it. But Nina saw it. A flicker of recognition, followed by the briefest hint of panic, quickly masked. Nina, a very beautiful-looking lady, stared at the door of the study, her pulse racing. She couldn't move. It felt like time stood still, each second stretching unbearably long. From behind the closed door, Alex's voice was low, his tone carrying an edge of tension. "I told you not to call me here," he whispered, sharp and frustrated. There was a pause, filled only with the muffled rustle of him shifting in his chair. "She's starting to suspect something." Nina's throat tightened as if a cold hand had wrapped around her neck. Those words reverberated through her mind, twisting like a knife. Who was he talking to? The truth settled over her like a heavy shroud, dense, suffocating. She wanted to storm inside, confront him, scream until the answers poured out of him. But her instincts stopped her. She wasn't ready. Not yet. If she barged in now, she knew exactly how it would go. He would deny everything, spin lies with that charming smile she used to trust. No, she needed to be smart about this. She stepped back from the door, careful not to make a sound. Her breath was shallow, her heart pounding so loud she was sure Alex could hear it. In the silence, a new painful thought crept into her mind. How long has this been going on? That night, the tension between them was a silent storm. Alex acted as if everything were normal, slipping into bed beside her without a care in the world. The mattress dipped under his weight, and the faint scent of his cologne drifted toward her. "Good night, babe," he murmured, brushing a kiss against her shoulder. Nina clenched her jaw and kept her eyes shut, pretending to sleep. Alex shifted, settling comfortably under the blankets. Soon, his breathing evened out, slow and deep, signaling that he had fallen asleep. But sleep would not come for Nina. Her mind was a swirling mess, memories and questions tumbling over each other. The earring, the hotel receipt, the conversation she had just overheard. How could someone she loved so deeply become a stranger overnight? How had she missed the signs? She rolled onto her side, staring out into the darkness. The room felt colder than usual, as if the warmth had been drained from it along with the trust in her heart. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the windows, but it did nothing to brighten Nina's mood. Alex was already in the kitchen when she came downstairs, sipping coffee and scrolling through his phone like everything was fine. "Morning," he said with a cheerful grin, as if he hadn't just shattered her world. Nina forced a smile, gripping her coffee mug like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Her eyes drifted toward his phone, sitting there on the counter so close, yet just out of reach. "You excited for the weekend?" Alex asked as he leaned casually against the counter, unaware of the storm brewing beneath Nina's calm exterior. She gave a small nod, sipping her coffee. "Yeah, a break sounds nice." Her voice felt distant, like it belonged to someone else. Meanwhile, her mind raced. She had to get his phone. She needed to know what he was hiding. They moved through the morning like actors in a play, each line rehearsed, each smile carefully performed. Alex talked about the cabin, their plans for hiking, and maybe even some fishing, but Nina barely heard him. All she could think about was how to get access to his phone without raising suspicion. An hour later, they were packing their bags into the trunk of the car. Alex hummed softly to himself, in good spirits, as if the weight of betrayal didn't sit between them. Nina clenched her jaw and forced a smile whenever he glanced her way. Her moment came when his phone buzzed on the dashboard, lighting up with a new message. "Hey, could you grab the last bag from the porch?" she asked, keeping her tone light and casual. "Sure thing," Alex said, oblivious, as he jogged back toward the house. Nina's hands trembled as she snatched his phone from the dashboard. Her heart raced as she unlocked it. He hadn't even bothered to change the password. Her breath hitched as the messages appeared on the screen. "I miss you already. Be careful. She can't find out." Her stomach twisted painfully. It was worse than she had imagined. The words were intimate, filled with familiarity and affection. Words meant for someone else. She scrolled further, her hands shaking. There were more messages, long late-night conversations, exchanged photos, and plans to meet. Then another message appeared, right before her eyes. "Are you telling her this weekend?" Her blood ran cold. "Telling me what?" Before she could process the message, Alex's voice called from the porch. "Got the bag? Ready to go?" Nina locked the phone and placed it back on the dashboard, her heart pounding in her chest. She forced a smile as Alex approached, her mind racing with unanswered questions. "Yes," she said softly. "All set." The drive to the cabin was quiet. Alex hummed along to the radio, tapping his fingers on the steering wheel as if he didn't have a care in the world. But Nina's mind was elsewhere, the weight of the messages pressing down on her like a heavy stone. She stared out the window, watching the scenery blur past, her thoughts swirling. What was he planning to tell her this weekend? Her hand slipped into her pocket, her fingers brushing against the smooth curve of the earring. The tiny object felt heavier now, as if it carried the weight of every lie Alex had told. By the time they reached the cabin, the sun was beginning to set, casting the lake in shades of orange and gold. The cabin was beautiful, nestled among tall pines, with a view of the water that stretched out into the horizon. But Nina couldn't appreciate the beauty. All she saw were the cracks in her marriage, growing wider with each passing moment. Inside, Alex busied himself with setting up the fireplace while Nina sat on the edge of the bed, her hands folded tightly in her lap. The air between them felt thick, heavy with unspoken truths. Nina knew she couldn't hold it in any longer. She needed answers. "So," she began, her voice quiet but firm. "Is there anything you want to tell me?" Alex froze for a moment, the slightest flicker of hesitation crossing his face. "What do you mean?" he asked, turning toward her with a puzzled smile. Nina reached into her pocket and pulled out the earring, holding it up between them. "Whose is this?" Alex's expression shifted just for a second. A flicker of guilt, fear, recognition. And then, just as quickly, it was gone. His smile returned, calm and confident. "You really want to do this now?" he asked, his voice low and steady. Nina's heart pounded in her chest. "Yes, I do." Alex stepped closer, his gaze dark and unreadable. "Because if we're having this conversation," he said quietly, "things are going to change. Forever." The room fell into silence, the weight of his words hanging in the air. Nina's breath hitched as she realized that whatever Alex was about to say next could shatter her world beyond repair. The air in the cabin felt charged, heavy with unspoken words as Nina held up the earring, its metallic sheen glinting in the dim light. She stared at Alex, her heart pounding in her chest, searching his face for any hint of remorse. His expression had shifted from confident to one of guarded tension. Whose is this? She demanded, her voice steadier than she felt. Alex took a deep breath, his eyes narrowing slightly. Nina, we can't have this conversation right now, he said, his tone calm but laced with a warning. We're supposed to be enjoying our weekend away. Enjoying? You think I can enjoy anything while I'm holding this? She snapped, anger bubbling beneath the surface. You think I can just forget about everything that's been happening? The missed calls? The late nights? He shifted, running a hand through his hair, frustration clear on his face. Can't you see this isn't the time? Not the time? Nina exclaimed, her voice rising. When is the right time to talk about betrayal, Alex? The fire crackled loudly in the silence that followed, punctuating the tension between them. Alex glanced away, his jaw clenched, as if he were weighing his options. Nina felt her chest tighten with the pressure of the moment. Just tell me the truth, she pressed, taking a step closer, her eyes locked onto his. Who is she? What's going on? Alex looked back at her, and for a fleeting moment, the mask of calm slipped away, revealing a flicker of something darker: fear, guilt. I don't want to hurt you, he said finally, his voice low, almost pleading. The vulnerability in his words caught her off guard, but it also made her angrier. How could he say that when he was the one lying to her? You're already hurting me. Nina felt the tears brimming in her eyes but fought to hold them back. She wasn't going to let him see her break. Instead, she took a deep breath, grounding herself in the present. You need to answer me. I deserve to know. Alex's expression hardened, and he stepped back, creating distance between them. You don't know what you're asking for, he said, his tone firm. Try me, she challenged, crossing her arms. He hesitated, the silence stretching taut between them. Finally, he seemed to relent, his shoulders slumping slightly. It's complicated, Nina. Complicated? Or just messy? She countered, frustration coursing through her veins. Both, he admitted, running a hand over his face. But I didn't mean for any of this to happen. What does that even mean? She asked, desperation creeping into her voice. What have you done? I've been talking to someone else, he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. Nina felt her heart drop, a cold wave washing over her. The words echoed in her mind, each syllable cutting deeper than the last. How long? Just a few months, he said, avoiding her gaze. Months? The word felt foreign on her tongue, bitter and heavy. How could you do this to me? I didn't plan for it to happen, Alex replied, his eyes finally meeting hers. It was a mistake. I was feeling lost, alone. I thought I could handle it, but it got out of hand. Lost? Alone? Nina scoffed, disbelief flooding her. You have a wife who loves you. You had everything. I know, he shouted, frustration pouring out of him. I know that now, but at the time, it felt like I was drowning. I didn't know how to talk to you. So you cheated instead? She fired back, incredulity lacing her words. I didn't cheat in the way you think, he corrected, a hint of defensiveness creeping in. It was emotional. It wasn't supposed to mean anything. Nina felt sick to her stomach. Emotional affairs cut deeper than physical ones. They undermined the very foundation of trust in a relationship. You don't get to decide what's meaningful, she said coldly. I know, he replied, looking genuinely remorseful now. And I'm sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I just need you to understand. She shook her head, her emotions a chaotic whirlwind. Understand what, Alex? That you were talking to someone else while we were supposed to be building a life together? While I was planning our future? I never meant to hurt you, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Too late for that, Nina replied, feeling the ache of betrayal settle in her chest like a stone. I don't know how we can move forward from this. Please, just give me a chance to explain, he pleaded, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. Nina turned away, her heart torn between the love she still felt and the betrayal that cut so deeply. She took a moment, breathing in the cabin's air, fresh, pine-scented, but suffused with tension. Why did you tell me you were going to the office late? She asked, her voice steadying as she faced him again. If it was so complicated, why not be honest? I was ashamed, he admitted. I didn't want to hurt you, and I didn't know how to admit that I had feelings for someone else. Feelings, she echoed, feeling the warmth of anger flooding back. What kind of feelings? Love? I don't know, he said, shaking his head, his face twisting with frustration. It was confusing. I got swept away. I thought I could compartmentalize it. Nina felt her breath quicken. Compartmentalize? You thought you could just separate your life? You can't just turn your emotions on and off like a switch. I know, he exclaimed, his voice rising. I'm not defending myself. I'm just trying to explain. I was in a dark place, and I let someone else in. Someone else? She repeated, her tone sharp. You mean her? Yes, he admitted, his voice lowering. But I realized too late that it was a mistake. I love you, Nina. I don't want to lose you. The weight of his words hung in the air, mingling with the crackling fire. But instead of comfort, they felt like shackles tightening around her heart. How could she trust him again? I need some air, she said abruptly, turning away from him. She stepped outside onto the porch, the cool evening breeze washing over her like a balm. The lake lay still, the surface reflecting the colors of the sky as twilight descended. She leaned against the railing, breathing in deeply, trying to steady herself. Behind her, the door creaked open. Alex stepped out, his expression a mixture of hope and concern. Nina? Just give me a moment, she replied, her voice strained. She felt his presence beside her, but the gap between them felt insurmountable. It was as if they were standing on opposite shores of a vast, turbulent sea. I'm here whenever you're ready to talk, he said softly, his voice almost a whisper. Nina nodded, her thoughts racing. She wanted to scream, to throw things, to break something to relieve the pressure building inside her. But all she could do was stand there, trapped between heartbreak and confusion. Did you tell her you were married? She asked suddenly, her voice trembling. What? Alex replied, startled. No, I never mentioned you. Why not? She pressed, turning to face him. If it was just emotional, why keep me a secret? Because I didn't want to complicate things even more, he said, his hands running through his hair in frustration. I thought it would be easier that way. Easier? She scoffed. You call this easy? You've shattered my trust, Alex. I don't even know who you are anymore. Silence enveloped them, thick and suffocating. The air crackled with tension as they stared out over the water, both grappling with the enormity of the situation. Nina closed her eyes, breathing in the cool air. Memories of laughter and love flooded her mind, moments that now felt tainted. Could she ever see those memories the same way again? Please, Nina, Alex said, breaking the silence. I'll do anything to make this right. Just give me a chance. She turned to face him, her heart racing. What does that even mean? How do you plan to fix this? I'll cut ties with her, he said earnestly, his eyes pleading. I'll show you that I'm committed to us. I'll do whatever it takes. Nina searched his face, looking for sincerity. Was it possible for him to change? Could he truly let go of this other person? Or was she merely a temporary fix for his confusion? What if it's too late? She whispered, feeling the tears finally spill over. What if I can't trust you again? Then I'll prove it to you, he replied, stepping closer, his gaze intense. I'll spend every day showing you that I can be the husband you deserve. The night deepened around them, the stars twinkling above, but they were caught in their own world, battling the shadows of their reality. The fire crackled behind them, casting flickering shadows across the porch. Nina swallowed hard, grappling with her feelings. Could she give him another chance? What would that mean for her heart? Before she could respond, Alex's phone buzzed loudly from inside the cabin. The sudden noise shattered the fragile silence. He stepped away to grab it, and Nina's heart raced again. What if it was her? Just a minute, Alex called, looking at the screen. His expression darkened, and he turned back to her, worry etched on his face. What is it? Nina asked, her stomach dropping. It's her, he said, his voice tight. Nina felt her breath hitch in her throat. The woman who had come between them was calling, and everything was hanging in the balance. Would Alex answer, or would this be the moment that defined the rest of their lives? Nina had sensed it for weeks. The tension between her and Alex had become impossible to ignore, like a shadow lurking in the room every time they spoke. She could see it in his eyes, the way he looked over her shoulder, lost in his own mind, barely holding it together. That day, Nina couldn't wait any longer. She marched to his office, her determination only hardening with each step. As she walked, she thought back to all the strange behavior, the secretive phone calls, the sudden absences, his evasive responses whenever she asked about work. If he thought he could keep this up, he was wrong, she told herself. Inside Alex's office, she shut the door behind her. She didn't even bother sitting down. Alex, it's time to tell me the truth. No more lies. Her voice came out stronger than she felt. She watched as he froze, the usual charm gone from his face, replaced by something she rarely saw. Fear. After a heavy silence, he sat down, running a hand through his hair, looking older, defeated. Nina, he started, his voice low and heavy. I didn't want you to find out like this. I made a mistake. Years ago, I invested in something I shouldn't have. It was risky, dangerous, and Titi found out. She's been blackmailing me ever since. Nina's mouth went dry. She had suspected Alex was hiding something, but this? She felt a mix of anger, sadness, and betrayal. How could he keep this from me, she thought. She wanted to yell, to demand an explanation. But seeing him like this, vulnerable and worn down, her frustration turned into pity. So, you're letting her control you? Just like that? Her voice was softer than she expected, carrying the weight of her disappointment. Alex avoided her gaze. If this comes out, if people know, I'll lose everything I've worked for. I didn't know what else to do. Nina left his office with more questions than answers, her mind spinning as she walked home. She kept replaying Alex's words in her head, thinking of TT's manipulation. Her grip over him was deeper than Nina realized, and she knew it wasn't going to be easy to break. That night, Nina lay in bed, her mind racing. But just as she was drifting off, her phone buzzed loudly on the nightstand. She groggily reached over, squinting at the screen. The message was chilling. Back off or you'll regret it. Her mind snapped into alertness, adrenaline flooding her veins. She sat up, staring at the screen as more messages came in, each one angrier, more threatening. Her hands shook as she read them, a mix of fear and disbelief washing over her. Was this from TT? Had she found out that Mina knew? The idea made her skin crawl. Morning came slowly, and Nina felt like she hadn't slept at all. Determined to get to the bottom of this, she arranged to meet her friend Samantha, someone she trusted with her life. If anyone could help her understand who she was up against, it was Samantha. At the cafe, Nina shared everything. She watched as Samantha's face turned from surprise to disgust. After a moment, Samantha pulled out her phone and began typing furiously. Within minutes, she had found articles and blog posts about TT connections, rumors, whispers of scandal. Samantha looked up, her expression grim. "Nina, this woman has a history. Look here. She's done this before, blackmailing people, pulling them under her control. She builds trust, finds their weak spots, and then she owns them. And she's ruthless about it." Nina's heart pounded as she read. TT's life was a web of manipulation and deception, and Alex was only the latest caught in it. "This isn't just about money," Nina said slowly. "She gets close, she builds trust, she ruins lives." Nina knew she had to do something, but her decision only seemed to provoke TT further. The next morning, Nina stepped outside her apartment to find her car vandalized. Red spray paint screamed across the hood. "Back off." Nina's heart raced as she stared at the words, feeling their weight. She grabbed her phone, calling Alex with shaking hands. "Alex, she's gone too far," she said, her voice trembling. "This isn't just about you anymore. She's trying to scare me too." "Then stay away, Nina," he replied, his tone a mixture of fear and anger. "Please, you don't know what she's capable of. You're not safe." Nina took a deep breath, anger welling up inside her. "Alex, we can't let her keep doing this. She's counting on us to stay silent, to live in fear, and I can't do that." Alex sighed, but he didn't argue. He knew as well as she did that this couldn't go on. That night, Nina returned to her apartment, feeling a strange calm settle over her. She knew she couldn't let TT intimidate her, but as she lay in bed, the fear crept back, twisting her thoughts. What if she was putting herself in danger? What if TT really would do something to her? Her phone buzzed again. The message was blunt and final. "This is your last warning." Nina's heart raced as she stared at the screen. TT was escalating. This was no idle threat. She took a deep breath, pushing down the fear. "Enough," she thought. "She can't control me." The next morning, she walked outside to find her car again. The sight of it sent a chill down her spine. Her tires had been slashed, all 4 of them. Her hands shook as she approached the car. A note was taped to the windshield. She pulled it off, reading the words slowly, letting each one sink in. "Stay in your lane, or else." Nina felt a wave of anger crash over her, replacing the fear. This wasn't just about TT or Alex anymore. This was about her freedom, her dignity. She looked around, half expecting to see someone watching her, but the street was empty. Taking a deep breath, she gripped the note in her hand, her mind made up. If TT thought she could keep her quiet, she was about to find out just how wrong she was. It's late evening, and Nina sits alone in her living room, scrolling through photos on her phone, trying to distract herself from the unsettling emptiness in the house. Alex has been missing for nearly 2 days, and though he sent vague text messages about handling the situation, he hasn't given her any real information. Every ping of her phone makes her heart race with a combination of hope and dread. She tries to brush off her anxiety, but it lingers, gnawing at her. She's always trusted Alex, yet the secrets he's been keeping have planted seeds of doubt. Where could he be? She wonders, her thoughts spiraling. Is he really handling things? Or is there more he isn't telling me? As she sips her tea, Nina's mind returns to her recent conversations with Juliana. She recalls the way her best friend seemed uncomfortable, almost evasive, when she asked for advice. Her thoughts sharpen, and she begins to suspect that Juliana might know something about Alex's strange behavior. With a surge of determination, she decides to call Juliana and press for answers. Nina's fingers hover over her phone as she dials Juliana's number. The line rings for what feels like an eternity before Juliana finally picks up. Her voice sounds tense, guarded. "Hey Nina," Juliana greets her cautiously. "Is everything okay?" Nina takes a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. "I'm not sure, Juliana. I haven't seen Alex in 2 days. He says he's handling something, but he's so secretive, and I just feel like there's more going on. Do you know anything about it?" There's a long pause on the other end of the line. Nina can almost hear Juliana's mind racing, trying to decide what to say. Finally, she replies, but her voice is hesitant, almost guilty. "Nina, I don't know. Maybe he's just under a lot of pressure. You know how Alex can be." Juliana's answer feels evasive, as though she's hiding something. Nina's frustration flares up. "Juliana, you're my best friend. If you know anything, please just tell me. I can't take this waiting and wondering. It's tearing me apart." Juliana's silence speaks volumes, and Nina's suspicion deepens. She decides to let it go for now, but the seed of doubt has already been planted. Hanging up, Nina feels more alone than ever. She knows Juliana is keeping something from her, but what could it be? The next morning, Nina's doorbell rings unexpectedly. She opens the door to find Juliana standing there, looking unusually nervous. She invites her in, her curiosity mingling with a simmering frustration that's been growing since their last call. They sit down, and Nina wastes no time. "Juliana, I need you to be honest with me. I can tell you're holding back and I don't understand why. I thought we were closer than that." Juliana fidgets, avoiding Nina's gaze. "Nina, please, don't make this harder than it already is. There are things you're better off not knowing." Nina's patience snaps. "I have the right to know, Juliana. If there's something you're hiding about my husband, something that affects me, then I deserve the truth." Juliana's eyes fill with guilt and hesitation. "Nina, you're my best friend. I never wanted to hurt you. But I can't keep lying. You need to know that there's someone else. It's not just Titi." Nina's heart stops, her mind racing with a mix of anger, betrayal, and disbelief. "What are you saying, Juliana? Are you telling me Alex has been with another woman besides Titi?" Juliana nods, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, Nina. There's another woman. I didn't want to believe it myself.
Nina's heart
but I've
stops,
seen things,
her mind
heard
racing
things.
with a mix of anger,
I tried to convince
betrayal,
myself
and
it wasn't
disbelief.
true. But
What
I
are you
can't lie
saying,
to you
Juliana?
anymore."
Are you telling me Alex has been with another woman besides Titi? Juliana nods, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, Nina. There's another
Nina feels as though the ground has crumbled beneath her. Everything she believed about her marriage, her husband's loyalty, now feels like an illusion. She struggles to process Juliana's words, the betrayal cutting deeper than she ever thought possible. Nina's mind reels as she recalls small moments that, in retrospect, seem painfully clear. She remembers the times Alex came home late, smelling of unfamiliar perfume, or the texts he brushed off as work emergencies. These small red flags, dismissed as paranoia, now stand out vividly in her memory. The weight of this realization presses down on her, threatening to break her. The betrayal is almost too much to bear, and yet she forces herself to stay strong, for her own sake. She looks at Juliana, hurt evident in her eyes. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Juliana's voice is full of regret. "I thought I was protecting you, Nina. I thought that maybe if I kept it to myself, this whole nightmare would go away. I didn't want to be the one to break your heart." But Nina isn't comforted by Juliana's words. She feels betrayed not just by Alex, but by Juliana too. Her best friend knew and kept it hidden, leaving her in the dark. Determined to confront Alex, Nina spends the next day rehearsing what she'll say. She goes over every word, every question, imagining his responses and bracing herself for more heartbreak. When Alex finally returns that evening, looking exhausted and tense, Nina steels herself. She watches him as he walks in, guilt written across his face. Without preamble, she confronts him. "Alex, I know everything. Titi isn't the only woman, is she?" Alex freezes, the color draining from his face. "Nina, I can explain." She cuts him off, her voice barely steady. "Don't insult me with excuses, Alex. I want the truth. I deserve that much at least." Alex hesitates, looking away as though the weight of his lies is crushing him. "Nina, I never meant for this to happen. I was lost. I made mistakes, terrible mistakes, and I was afraid to tell you because I knew it would hurt you." His words are a twisted echo of her worst fears. The anger and sadness in her heart mix with a feeling of finality, as she realizes that there's no going back from this. Later, after Alex retreats to another room, Nina sits in silence, unable to process everything. She feels a gnawing sense of betrayal from every angle, not knowing who to trust anymore. Juliana returns to check on her, visibly upset. In the dim light of the room, Juliana's composure crumbles, and she begins to sob. "Nina, I have to tell you everything. I can't keep this secret anymore." Juliana reveals that she's known about Alex's infidelities for a long time, having stumbled upon messages and overheard conversations. She'd tried to protect Nina, fearing that if she exposed the full truth, it would destroy her friend. But now, seeing Nina in so much pain, she realizes that withholding the truth was just as damaging. "Nina, it wasn't just Titi. There's someone else too. A woman he met through work. I kept hoping it would end, but he kept seeing her, and I didn't know how to tell you." Nina's heart shatters, realizing the depth of Alex's betrayal. She feels the walls closing in around her, her world imploding under the weight of each new revelation. The room is thick with tension as Juliana finishes her confession, leaving Nina at a crossroads. The pain of betrayal is raw, but now she faces an impossible choice: confront Alex with the full truth, or walk away from everything they built. Nina stands in silence, feeling the enormity of the decision before her. The betrayal from both Alex and Juliana feels like an anchor pulling her down, yet she knows she must make a choice. As she stands at the window, looking out into the night, her expression unreadable. Her phone buzzes with a message, but she doesn't check it, the resolve building in her eyes. Nina's voice echoes in a soft, determined tone. "I've let too many lies destroy me, but this time, I won't be broken. This time, I'll decide my own fate." Nina stands alone in her kitchen, surrounded by memories of her life with Alex, from their wedding photos on the fridge to souvenirs from trips they took together. Each item, once a reminder of their love, now feels like a painful symbol of betrayal. She's been sleepless, replaying every suspicious glance, every secretive phone call, wondering what clues she missed. Nina's mind wanders to their engagement, the excitement, the planning, the vows they promised each other. How could he have been hiding another relationship, even as he planned a future with her? As she remembers each moment, her heart aches with a fresh wave of betrayal. She thinks about how, after her conversation with Juliana, She doesn't even know if she's angry, heartbroken, or simply lost. The line between them all has blurred. Nina makes her way to Alex's apartment, her steps heavy with dread and a strange sense of determination. She feels her heart pound as she knocks on his door. This is it, she'll demand answers, once and for all. When Alex opens the door, the tension is palpable. His eyes are tired, filled with a mix of guilt and defiance, and for a moment, Nina almost feels a pang of sympathy for him. Almost. Alex, why didn't you tell me about her? Why keep this secret? She demands, her voice sharp but trembling. Alex rubs his face, visibly tense. It was before we got engaged, Nina. It was a mistake. Something I wanted to forget, to bury. It ended then. But Nina's voice cracks, her emotions overwhelming her. If it ended, why hide it? Why not tell me? Let me decide if I could forgive you. She tries to keep the anger in check, but the pain slips through, and she realizes she's holding back tears. They sit across from each other, and as Alex finally opens up about his past, about the choices he regrets, Nina feels like she's hearing a stranger's story. He talks about how he thought he could handle things alone, never realizing how deeply the lie would burrow into their relationship. But his words feel empty. Nina knows this conversation won't erase the betrayal. Leaving his apartment, Nina feels numb. She steps outside and lets the cool evening air wash over her. She starts driving, no destination in mind, simply needing to escape, to let the torrent of emotions inside her calm. She drives through familiar streets, scenes of her life with Alex flashing in her mind, memories that now feel tainted. She thinks about calling Juliana, but she's not ready to talk, not even to her best friend. Instead, she finds herself pulling up to the park where Alex had proposed to her, a place that had once felt magical. Now, it's just another reminder of what she thought was real. As she walks along the path, she recalls every little promise Alex made to her, each one now a painful reminder. She stops at the spot where he had knelt down, holding out the ring. Did any of it mean anything to him? She wonders, a fresh wave of anger rising within her. The world feels heavy, as if every part of her life has been tainted by his betrayal. Back home, Nina begins pacing, thinking about what leaving Alex would mean. She stares at their wedding photo on the mantle, realizing how every dream she had for their future is now shadowed by doubt. She feels like a stranger in her own home. She paces, then sits, clutching a pillow as her thoughts race. The decision feels impossible. How do you leave the person you thought you'd spend your life with? How do you break away when everything you know is bound up in them? Nina finally starts packing a small bag. She moves slowly, the weight of each item making her pause, each piece a memory she has to leave behind. She's so lost in her pain that she doesn't notice the small, unopened pregnancy test sitting in her bag's side pocket, left over from a recent scare. But she's so focused on leaving that it goes unnoticed for now. As she's finishing packing, Nina feels a wave of dizziness, a sudden queasiness that sends her sitting back on the bed. She brushes it off, thinking it's from the stress. But as she calms down, she realizes this isn't the first time she's felt this way recently. Her eyes land on the unopened pregnancy test in her bag's side pocket. It feels like a cruel twist of fate. Slowly, almost mechanically, she takes it out, unable to believe that she's actually considering it. Could she really be pregnant? In the quiet of the bathroom, she goes through the motions, feeling detached, as if she's watching someone else's life unfold. When the result appears, the word pregnant stares back at her, clear and undeniable. The world goes silent. Her mind reels. She tries to think clearly, but everything is spinning. She feels the weight of her choices crashing down. How could this be happening now, in the middle of the worst moment of her life? Nina sits in the bathroom, clutching the test, her thoughts a chaotic storm. She had been so ready to leave, to walk away from Alex and the pain he'd caused her. But now, everything is different. She thinks of the life growing inside her, of the future she had once dreamed of, now suddenly altered by this unexpected discovery. She closes her eyes, feeling the tears start to fall as she whispers to herself, "What am I supposed to do?" With this new life inside her, the idea of leaving becomes a double-edged sword. She knows that if she stays, she's not just fighting for herself anymore, she's fighting for her child. But the thought of staying, of pretending everything is okay, feels unbearable. In this moment, Nina's pain shifts, becoming something more. She realizes she has to decide not only for herself, but for her child, a life that hasn't even begun, but now holds a part of her heart. Nina takes a deep, shuddering breath. She stands, looking at herself in the mirror, barely recognizing the woman she sees. Her hand rests on her stomach, and she whispers, "I have to protect you." She walks out of the bathroom, her mind swirling, a mix of love and pain, anger and resolve. She knows that whatever decision she makes, it won't be easy. But she's no longer alone in this fight. She has her unborn child to consider. With the pregnancy test still in her hand, she finally sits down, realizing that no matter what, her life will never be the same. As she contemplates the future, her heart torn in two, leaving her decision hanging in the balance. Nina is sitting alone in her living room, feeling the weight of her pregnancy news settle around her. She hasn't told anyone yet, not even Alex. Her mind spins as she tries to imagine a future for her unborn child, but the uncertainty and heartbreak make it impossible. Just as she closes her eyes, her phone vibrates. It's Alex, his name flashing on the screen. When she answers, she can hear the strain in his voice. He sounds more anxious than usual, his words coming out in a hurried rush. "Nina, it's Titi. She's demanding everything." Nina's heart stops. "What do you mean everything?" "She wants assets, property, money, things she's not entitled to. If I don't give in, she says she'll ruin us, expose everything I've done, and drag us both through the mud. She wants it all, Nina. And she won't stop until she gets it." Alex's words cut deep. Nina realizes that Titi's vendetta isn't just about him, it's about her too. Titi wants to destroy them both, to unravel every shred of stability they have left. "What are you going to do?" Nina asks, her voice quiet, almost defeated. "I don't know, Nina," Alex replies, voice heavy with exhaustion. "If I don't comply, she'll tell everyone. She's relentless. She'll destroy us, and the baby's future." The mention of their unborn child catches Nina off guard. Alex knows somehow, and for a moment, it's as if all her defenses crumble. She whispers, "How did you know?" "I saw the test in the bathroom," Alex replies softly. "I didn't want to say anything until you were ready to tell me." Nina doesn't know what to say. For the first time in a long while, they share a moment of silence, united in fear and uncertainty. After Alex's call, Nina feels the weight of the decision ahead of her. She's torn between protecting her child's future and breaking away from a marriage built on lies. The idea of staying with Alex feels like a betrayal of herself, yet the thought of raising her child alone terrifies her. In the quiet of the living room, she sits with her hands on her stomach, whispering to her unborn child. "What do I do? How do I make the right choice?" She remembers her own childhood, the sacrifices her mother made to give her a stable life. The thought of her child suffering because of her choices is unbearable. But so is the idea of staying with a man who lied to her. She feels the conflicting emotions tearing her apart. Nina knows that she can't make this decision without confronting Titi herself. She arranges to meet her at a cafe, hoping to understand why Titi is so determined to destroy their lives. Titi arrives, looking smug and composed, as if she's already won. Well, Nina, how does it feel to know you were second choice? Nina clenches her fists under the table, struggling to keep her composure. What do you want, Titi? Why can't you just let us live our lives? Titi's smile widens. Alex owes me, Nina. He promised me things he never delivered. So, he has two choices. Give me what I deserve, or lose everything. Nina takes a deep breath, trying to stay calm. And you're willing to ruin a child's life in the process? An innocent life? For a split second, Titi's expression softens, but then she laughs coldly. I don't care about your child, Nina. This is about payback. Alex betrayed me, and now he'll pay for it. Nina realizes that there's no reasoning with her. Titi is fueled by anger, her desire for revenge so consuming that nothing else matters. She leaves the cafe with a sense of dread, knowing that the ultimatum is real. Back at home, Nina is overwhelmed. She calls Juliana, desperate for advice. When her best friend arrives, Nina feels a surge of relief. They sit in the kitchen, and Nina spills everything. The affair, the blackmail, the threats, even her pregnancy. Juliana listens quietly, her face a mixture of shock and sadness. Nina, this is a nightmare. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do, Juliana, Nina says, her voice trembling. I'm terrified of raising this baby alone. But I'm equally terrified of staying with Alex, of living a lie just for the sake of my child. Juliana reaches across the table, squeezing her hand. You're strong, Nina. You've always been strong. Whatever you decide, you'll find a way to protect yourself and your child. But you need to decide what you're willing to sacrifice, your happiness or your stability. Nina nods, feeling the weight of the decision press down on her. She's no closer to an answer, but she feels a small spark of hope. Maybe she can find a way out that doesn't mean losing everything. That evening, Alex comes home, his face weary, his eyes pleading. He tells Nina that he's made a decision. He's going to sign over the assets to Titi to protect their family. It's a desperate move, but he believes it's the only way to end the nightmare. But Nina's not so sure. She looks at him, anger bubbling up again. You think giving her money will make this go away? She'll take everything you give and keep pushing, keep demanding more. You can't fix this by giving in to her. Alex falls silent, realizing the truth in her words. They sit together in the heavy silence, each of them trapped by Titi's threats and the consequences of their actions. Finally, Alex speaks. I don't know what else to do, Nina. I feel like I'm losing everything, my family, my future, even you. Nina's heart aches, but she steels herself. Maybe you already have. After Alex leaves the room, Nina knows she has to make a choice. She spends the night pacing, thinking, weighing every option. She starts packing a small bag, knowing that leaving Alex may be the only way to protect herself and her child. But as she's gathering her things, she feels a pang of sadness. She had once dreamed of building a life with him, of raising a family together. Now, all of that is slipping away, leaving her with nothing but shattered dreams. As she places the last item in her bag, she feels a strange sense of calm wash over her. She's made her decision, and though it's painful, she knows it's the right choice. Just as she zips her bag, her phone buzzes. It's an unknown number. She opens the message, her heart racing as she reads the words. "Meet me tonight. I know how to end this." Nina stares at the message, her mind racing with questions. Who could it be? Could this be the way out she's been searching for? Or is it just another trap, another layer of deception? The clock ticks, and Nina realizes she has a choice to make. Does she follow the message, risking everything for a chance to end the nightmare? Or does she stay, walking away from Alex and the life they built, hoping to find peace on her own terms? As the screen fades to black, Nina is left standing there, torn between hope and fear, on the brink of a decision that could change everything. Nina drives through the dimly lit streets toward the location specified in the mysterious message, her mind a storm of emotions. The message claimed to hold the solution to all her problems, but the mystery of the sender haunts her. Could it be Titi? She wonders. Or perhaps Alex, reaching out with some new plan. She grips the steering wheel, every turn feeling like a step deeper into a web of secrets. As she arrives at the location, a quiet, secluded cafe, Nina's phone vibrates with a new message. "I'm inside. Come alone." Her heart pounds as she enters, scanning the darkened booths. Finally, she spots a figure seated in the corner, shadowed but unmistakable. It's Juliana. Shock waves through Nina. Her best friend? The one person she thought she could trust through all this? She approaches cautiously, her mind racing, a feeling of betrayal already beginning to coil within her. Juliana greets her with a tense smile. "Sit, Nina. We need to talk." Nina sits across from Juliana, her gaze steely. "You're the one behind all of this, aren't you?" she demands, her voice trembling. Juliana doesn't deny it. Instead, she leans back, letting a bitter smile cross her face. "Surprised?" Juliana asks, her tone chillingly calm. "After all, I've been the one pulling the strings from the very beginning." Nina's shock quickly gives way to anger. "Why, Juliana? We've been friends for years. How could you betray me like this?" Juliana's smile fades, replaced by a look of deep resentment. "Because you took everything I ever wanted, Nina. Everything. You think I didn't notice how Alex looked at you? I've loved him since before you even met him, and yet you were the one he chose." Juliana's confession hangs heavily between them, her words dripping with years of unspoken jealousy and bitterness. Nina's mind reels, piecing together the years of subtle manipulation, the advice Juliana gave her, the calculated distance she encouraged between Nina and Alex. Unable to process the betrayal alone, Nina insists they bring Alex into this tangled mess. They call him, and he arrives a short while later, his face a mixture of confusion and dread as he enters the cafe and sees both women waiting for him. Alex looks between them, alarmed. "What's going on?" Nina's voice shakes as she points to Juliana. "Your so-called friend here has been behind everything. The blackmail, the threats, she did it all. She's the one who wanted to ruin us." Alex's shock is evident, but Juliana's face remains cold. "You don't get it, do you, Alex?" she says softly, bitterness lacing her voice. "I did it because I love you. I've always loved you. I would have given you everything if you'd just seen me." Alex stares at Juliana, horrified. "Love? This isn't love, Juliana. This is obsession. You've hurt Nina and destroyed our lives for what? Because I didn't choose you?" Juliana's face contorts with anger. "You chose her over me, Alex. I did everything for you, waited for you, and you never noticed. I wanted you to see that she wasn't right for you. I thought if I exposed her weaknesses, her flaws, you'd finally realize who truly cares for you." Nina watches, stunned and horrified, as Juliana's jealousy and desperation unfold. Everything she thought she knew about her best friend was a lie. She feels her anger bubbling up again, but now there's a strange pity mingling with it. Juliana has been consumed by her obsession, willing to ruin lives for a love that never existed. Before Nina and Alex can process Juliana's twisted motives, the door swings open, and in strides Titi, her face set with a smug smile. She had received word about this meeting, and decided it was time to lay down her own hand. She walks over, stopping only inches from Nina. "Enjoying your little heart-to-heart?" Titi sneers, her gaze cold. "I'm here to add one last thing to your fairy tale gone wrong." Nina glares at her, tired and drained. "What more could you possibly have to say?" Titi's smile grows. "Oh, I think you'll want to hear this. Alex didn't just cheat with me once. He's the father of my son." The room goes silent. Nina feels the words hit her like a punch to the gut, robbing her of air. She looks over at Alex, her heart shattering. His face is a mix of horror and regret, confirming the truth without a single word. Nina's knees go weak as she stumbles back, overwhelmed. She had been willing to face betrayal, even the truth of his affair. But a child? The reality of Alex's other family, another child who will forever be linked to him, feels like the ultimate betrayal. Titi continues, reveling in the effect of her words. "Did he tell you that he was still seeing me, even while you two were married? Did he mention all the promises he made to me?" Titi's tone is mocking, filled with satisfaction as she watches Nina crumble. Nina feels her world caving in around her. She looks at Alex, the man she thought she loved, the father of her unborn child. The weight of his betrayal is unbearable. Every lie, every secret feels like a knife twisting deeper into her heart. She wonders if she can ever forgive him, if she can find it within herself to stay, or if she needs to walk away for the sake of her sanity and her child. Her hand rests instinctively on her stomach, and she feels the life growing inside her, innocent and unaware of the chaos around them. "What is best for my child?" she asks herself. The question echoes in her mind, louder than her anger, louder than her pain. Nina takes a deep, steadying breath, looking between Alex, Juliana, and Titi. She realizes that this choice is hers alone. No one can tell her what to do. She closes her eyes, a tear slipping down her cheek as she makes the hardest decision of her life. With a newfound resolve, Nina turns to Titi, her voice steady, though her heart is breaking. "You may have his past, Titi, and maybe you have his secrets, but I won't let you control my future. You don't own me, and you certainly don't own my child's future." She then turns to Juliana, her voice a whisper of heartbreak. "And you were my best friend. You knew everything about me, about us, and you used it against me. I can't imagine the pain you must feel to do something so cruel, but I won't let you have power over me anymore." Finally, Nina faces Alex. "I loved you, Alex. I gave everything to us, but you chose to betray that. I have to think of our child now. I need to decide what's best for them, and I don't think that includes staying in this marriage." Alex looks devastated, reaching out to her, but she steps back. "Don't," she says, her voice breaking. "You've made your choices. Now, I'm making mine." Nina gathers her things, refusing to look back as she walks away. She heads out of the cafe, leaving Alex, Juliana, and Titi to their tangled mess. For the first time in days, she feels free, even though the pain is still fresh and raw. She knows she has a long road ahead of her, but she's ready to face it on her own terms. As she steps outside, she takes a deep breath, feeling a sense of peace amid the turmoil. She knows that there will be challenges, but she has her child to think of, her own happiness to reclaim. She whispers to her unborn baby, "It's just you and me now, but we'll be okay. I promise." With Nina finding strength within herself, the resilience to face her future without relying on others who have betrayed her, she walks into the night, feeling the weight lift from her shoulders. She knows it won't be easy, but she's ready to build a new life for herself and her child, free from deception and betrayal.